All right. Welcome back to the Partnership Mastermind Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lavoie. Absolutely fired up for today's interview. This is the first time that we've had two guests on, and we have some fantastic guests with us. Joining me, we have Hami Nasari from Aircall and Russell Bradley-Cook from HubSpot. These are two of the top co-selling partnership pros in all of SaaS. And so today we have a really fun conversation to talk about what's working, but ultimately, how do they actually make it work? And so today we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the three things that they do to actually make this successful. So we're going to start with the outcomes. What have these guys actually built together, and why should people care? Second, we're going to talk about the hard things about making co-sell such a successful motion, because it's obviously one of the more complex ones. And then we're going to wrap up by talking about what other partner leaders and other managers can use and actually steal from their playbook. So Hami, Russell, super pumped to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us. This is
Alrighty,
just a
cool.
continuation of our normal chat. Like Hamid and I are
Yeah,
on the phone pretty much every week talking about
yeah, yeah.
good things, bad things, and in between. So excited to
We
have you
love.
join our weekly call, Chris.
Look, I'm humbled to be a part of it, and I'm glad our audience is going to get an exposure to it. So we have a couple segments. The first one is really all about starting with the outcome. So I want to like establish credibility for you guys and like help people understand like what it is you guys have actually achieved together. And we'll start there, and then we'll start to get into how you did it. So first question for you, Russell. Like you guys are like 3-time co-sell partner of the year type awards, like very successful. But when you strip away the awards, the polished external version of it, like just simply put, like what is it that you and Hami have actually achieved together? What are the outcomes that people should care most about?
So I think what we have done very, very well is be extremely focused and concentrated. And I think what a lot of partner programs try to do is be all things to everybody, and that ends in tears. And so, well, we are very, very focused on making the HubSpot and Aircall partnership successful. And I think that starts both with a kernel of success, and that there was a long history of HubSpot and Aircall reps working together on deals, but turning that into a repeatable process, and then also going deeper. And so we spend a lot of time building out the product. So the Aircall Service Hub connection. And as of today, Aircall is still the only partner who integrates with help desk calling. It's the only partner who uses conversational intelligence transcripts directly into HubSpot. And those are those are extensibility that has been open for over a year in the case of help desk. And so it's a lot of great product work followed up by a lot of focus and dedication on making the co-sell successful.
That's fantastic. And I think most people listening, like that's the state of partnership that they dream of getting to, but only so few companies and partner programs can actually get to. So Hami, I'll flip it over to you. From your side, like what are the results that make you and other leaders at Aircall say, you know what, this is a real bona fide GTM motion, not just a good partner relationship?
Yeah.
I think setting aside that, as you mentioned, 3 times co-selling partner of the year, we're the most installed voice solution on the HubSpot platform. I think the real aha moment really came from us when we saw like a 15 to 25% revenue contribution every single quarter to our net new sales. I think that's the moment where like, oh, this is meaningful.
Right. Yeah, got it. So then was there a specific moment, just as a follow-up for you, Hami? Was there a specific moment where you mentioned like the install and the contributions, but was there a specific moment in time where it's like this really started to feel different than just any other normal integration partnership, and something that it's like, okay, we have to sink our teeth into this and like really build a strategy and a program around this to like actually invest resources? Because I think just to set the stage, like if you think of the 5 stages of partnership evolution, so to speak, like first you start getting some wins, but it's sporadic, and then it starts to become consistent. And then at some point it's like, okay, we should probably make like a bona fide strategy around this and like really invest resources. And if some of our reps on either side leave, it's okay, we're going to backfill and continue to support this. So like when in time did that start to coalesce for the Aircall and HubSpot partnership?
I don't think you can really think about it as a step function. I
Mm,
think it's more linear, to be fair. Um,
mm,
just when you think about where you stand in that co-sell partnership as an ISV partner selling with a platform partner, um, a lot of ISVs just should be very, very honest with themselves. Is like, do I actually have the right to co-sell? And what I mean by that is,
Hmm.
do the platform reps need you in their deals?
Yep.
If you don't have that, is very likely that you just have some sort of like coincidence engine. And so you need to do a lot of different things. Like you need to bring in marketing, you need to bring in product, you need to have all of your vectors aligned towards that partnership. And the likelihood that that happens just like from one moment to another is very unlikely. So it's a continuous evolution and just like a hardening of getting everyone rallied around that partnership.
Totally agree. And I love the phrasing of like vectors aligned in that way. And I'll agree on the linear comment there. To flip it over to you, Russell, on the HubSpot side, obviously HubSpot, this massive platform, publicly traded. Everyone wants to work with HubSpot. Everyone wants to be in the position that Aircall's been in. So you've been at HubSpot for plenty enough time, and just in that time horizon that you've been there, like how has like the perception of Aircall's importance to both your customer base and as a strategic, commercial avenue changed, even just in the 3+ years that you've been at HubSpot?
Well, I maybe give you like the good and the bad. How many knows I tend to be like, let's just put it on the table and talk about the hard things. Um, so I joined in 2022 and we expanded HubSpot Dialer shortly after. And the inbound functionality that we added, so the relationship between HubSpot and Aircall got a lot more competitive very quickly on in the relationship where I had with HubSpot. And I was like, okay, I missed this golden phase in between where it was like two distinct things and everybody in their lane. And it's been the messy middle ever since I've been here. And I think what Aircall have done a fantastic job with is being able to help HubSpot reps unblock deals that they would not have been able to sign otherwise. And so to give you an example of some things, even today, one-to-one SMS. As soon as a customer comes to a rep and says, I need one-to-one SMS, we do need to have a third-party partner or that deal is not going to go through. Complex IVR trees as you're going up market and you're trying to route calls to 20 different reps. You're going to need a partner. HubSpot Dialer does not do that. And so I think the perception of Aircall has been consistently strong as a partner. The product challenge has been something that we have managed, Hami and I, internally and across the relationship. So yeah, it's been I would say a work in progress. And I think maybe actually to add one other element to it, is that HubSpot as a product itself has gotten more complicated. And this was something that Hami had pointed out to me recently, which is that his sense is HubSpot reps are just increasingly heads down and just trying to understand HubSpot product itself. And so their bandwidth for dealing with partners and bringing in tech partners on their deals is lower. And I've got some ideas for how we can continue to accelerate, even knowing that they have a smaller bandwidth. But Hami,
Yeah,
I'll
that's
pass
great.
it to you because Hami, like the best partners know you better than you do yourself. So maybe I should
Yeah.
even pass the question to Hami directly.
Yeah, Hami, I'd love to get your reaction to that, especially on the competitive piece. Because this is all these big platforms. They're extending their functionality, so there's increasing chances that you'll start to compete to some extent. Like Workday is going through this right now in a major way with their service-based partners, as an example, where they're starting to like shut them out a bit. And so I've been at companies where this happens, and one of the biggest challenges is actually internal perception, right? Because the second that your sales fleet and even your customer success or marketing org thinks like, oh, that previously really important partner like Aircall or HubSpot, they're now like a competitor, they like mentally just block them out, right? And almost permanently. So how do you can react to what Russell said there, but another question is like, how do you maintain support for a key partner, even if there is somewhat increasing competitive overlap, but not having everybody overreact? And it's like, no, look, everybody, like, yeah, there's maybe a segment where this is true, but in large part, there's still so much green space. Because as you know, once perception starts to sit in, especially with the sales team, it's really hard to like get them back to the table. So would love to get your reaction to that and everything else that Russell had said.
Sure. I think first, I almost feel like a veteran in this because they're like virtually every partner that we work with has added a competitive element at some point in our partnership. So I've been going through a lot of different motions. And what I would say to that is, obviously, as an ISV partner, if you solve a very big product gap that is really important to customers, you should almost expect the platform to close it. Like if the platform doesn't do it, then
Sure.
they do bad to
You
their
get bigger
customers.
problems.
Exactly. So you almost want to brace yourself for that moment when the platform does. The next question then becomes, does the platform give you the extensibility to continue to grow on their platform? And actually, I think HubSpot has done a very decent job in doing so. We've seen, other partnerships that kind of erode over time because they close down the ecosystem more. They're more heads down on like selling their own suite than working with partners. And at that point, you need to really ask yourself, like, is this a partnership where you continue to invest from an alliance perspective? You will still do your marketing spiel. You will still have your BDRs reach out because there's probably a good reason why you solve a point that the platform doesn't do. But from an alliance perspective, you need to have the right signals and also have the open conversation with the partner and then take your decision based on that.
Got it. That's fantastic. So, okay, we've set the stage now in terms of like the origin story of Aircall and HubSpot and even how things have evolved, quasi-competitive nature that you have to kind of counterbalance. Now let's get into the heart of today's topic, which is co-selling, which is one of the hottest topics right now in partnerships. I believe it's going to be the skill of the next decade, so to speak, in partnerships, because if the companies only have time right now for things that are like concrete impacting revenue. Of all the partner motions, co-sell definitely trumps something like a referral motion in that it's bringing sales reps to the table, which is critical. You're reporting on the same type of goals, so you have way more credibility inside the org. So co-selling is a hot topic. You guys have done it time and time again. So lots of questions for you. We're going to unpack what you guys have done, what you guys have accomplished, but we're actually going to start super simple. And I want to get each of your kind of definitions of what co-selling means to you, because there's a surprising lack of understanding in market, especially within the IC layer of like, what the heck is co-selling? A lot of people confuse co-selling with referral motions, right? Where it's like very much like a tennis match where you're trying to surface a referral for the partner, you lob it over the fence and they work it, and then they try to lob a referral over the fence to you. Like that's obviously not what co-selling is. So let's just go back to the basics. I'll start with you, Russell. Like, how do you define co-selling in modern times?
Sure. So HubSpot recently updated and released tiers for our tech partner program. And so we have a very clear definition of co-sell, which is that we want HubSpot reps to be working with tech partner reps to influence HubSpot deals. And we actually call it a co-sell and co-service program, but that is how we define it today.
Amazing. And then Hami, for you?
I think for me, co-sell really comes down to this one element that I already alluded to in the beginning is, do you actually solve a critical gap in the product of your platform partner, and they need you in order to close the deal? Like that's literally the closest definition that I can think of, and the one that I really like the most, because otherwise, to your point, it's kind of like a referral partnership where you get tossed over a deal every now and then because you have a good relationship. But like if you actually need to work on a deal, that's a true co-selling motion.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just a clarifying question that confuses a lot of people. A lot of people think, okay, I get that. But within co-selling, is co-selling only happening when partner A and partner B are chasing the same mutual prospect? Or can co-selling also apply when maybe HubSpot and Russell are chasing a new prospect that they're in deal with, but it's already a HubSpot customer, or vice versa? I think people get really hung up on that. It's like, well, it's not really, my partner has this account as a customer and we're trying to close them, so they can't really support me in a co-sell sense. So like help the audience, understand that piece. Like what are the scenarios in which co-selling can happen? Is it only when it's a prospect in a deal of HubSpot and a prospect in a deal of Aircall, or can co-selling also happen when it's a prospect or deal of yours, but it's also an existing customer of the partners and they're really trying to like show up and be active? Because to be honest, this is like a huge limiter for a lot of people to wrap their head around with all things co-sell. So Russell, do you want to react to that?
I was going to let Hami go first on that one. So I think one of the challenges with co-sell, and Chris, actually, I might disagree with you. I don't think co-sell is going to be the motion for partnerships for the next 5 years. I think
Love
that
it.
AI is going to turn everything on its head, and then we're going to move much more towards a usage and outcome-based um, pricing model. And I think that will, like a lot of the co-sell programs that I see are focused on an initial transaction. And that initial like cash register moment is only a very small part of the value, which is, well, it's a very small part of the value, which is delivered to customers, but it's actually even a very small amount of value delivered to the platform and to the ISV partnering with us.
Sure.
And so I currently, to answer your question, we collaborate both on open deals and open customers. HubSpot has Sales Hub, Service Hub, Marketing Hub. We have Data Hub. And we have just launched a bunch of different agents called Prospecting Agent and Deal Assist Agent and Customer Agent. So we have a lot of different tools that we can sell. And so focusing on HubSpot's install base and expanding into additional hubs is something which is very valuable to HubSpot. Obviously, if you go ask the revenue team, are you interested in net new logos? Yes, they are very interested in net new logos.
Right.
And so I think part of our challenge in partnerships is to articulate the value that we are adding and to not just be able to articulate it, but actually be able to measure it, the post-sale value that partnerships add. And that has been my biggest challenge that I've had in the last 4 years. And actually, I think I'm making some good progress on it. So I'm
Love
excited
that.
for partnerships in 2026.
I love that energy. Cool. Well, I think that's a good answer. So we'll keep it moving. So now let's get to the heart of the conversation, which is around what you guys have actually achieved via co-selling. You kind of teased in the beginning of like what were some of the outcomes that you've been able to lock, but like help put this into context for our audience as it pertains to the HubSpot and Aircall co-selling partnership. You know, you don't have to share anything that's particularly super sensitive, but put into perspective like the numbers we're talking about, the scale we're talking about in terms of, 3-time kind of co-sell partner of the year. Like help us really understand what are the results, so to speak, that kind of substantiate just the success of the HubSpot Aircall kind of a co-sell partnership. Either one of you can take that.
I'll go first. HubSpot today is I won't name exactly how much like what the share is for Aircall, but you can imagine at 22,000 customers globally, it's a very, 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 very decisive portion of our customer base. As I said, 15 to 25% of our new business every quarter is HubSpot deals. And so to us, Aircall and HubSpot is almost like a marriage made in heaven with the occasional argument that you have in the marriage. But clearly it's something that that we're very excited about. But obviously we can talk about like what some of the challenges were for us to get there. But if you reach that scale at some point, it's just very easy to get buy-in from the rest of the go-to-market team, from the CEO until the BDR on the ground.
100%.
From our side, Chris, I would add, we are a public company, so we're a little bit limited in terms of the numbers that we can
Of
share.
course.
But with Aircall, in the past 3 years, we have increased the installs by 100%. We went from 7,000 to 14,000 installs. Obviously, not all of them active, but that is a phenomenal growth in a 3-year period coming out of post-COVID. And so I mentioned the product work that we did. We definitely saw things slowing down post-COVID, and we're able to re-accelerate that. On the co-sell side, we're actually growing the percentage-wise faster than the install base is. And I think that's more to do with figuring out better ways to attribute deals where Aircall is being influenced and putting in place a program to accelerate that co-sell motion. But both very, very strong numbers.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And thanks for sharing that. I mean, I like the install base. I think that's another thing that gets lost in a lot of tech partnerships is how important the product side is. And you may think that that's obvious, but like driving adoption is critical. And you might not think it's necessarily a huge part of your role in tech partnerships if you've got a revenue quota hung on your head, right? But if you're not supporting the growth of the install base, you're not creating a business case that will rally other people around putting more resources into it, right? So to be able to say 100% install base growth from 7,000 to 4,000, that's something that everybody can wrap their head around. But then that's tangible value for your customers, which makes it a stickier customer relationship. that there's probably some commercial upside on the top line perspective as a result of that. So everything just gets better when you drive adoption, which is key. So as a follow-up to that, so you put into context now the numbers and the impact. Now help us put into perspective the scope of like how many people, so to speak, are directly or indirectly involved in standing up and supporting the existing co-sell motion? Because that's another thing that people new to co-sell don't quite understand is like, okay, is it like everyone listening right now, is it just this Russell guy and this Hami guy? Are they doing all of this work to win, co-sell partner of the year 3 years in a row? So at the scale you guys are operating with, can you help us get a sense of how many people approximately, and who are these people that are involved on each side? I'll go with you first, Russell, and I'll go to you, Hami. But like, help us understand, like, you guys are obviously champions and doing a lot of heavy lifting, but who else and what other teams are kind of involved in making this all possible?
So in terms of people who are directly responsible for Aircall at HubSpot, you're looking at the team. But obviously behind me, I have a lot of support from our program team who offer support on listening to calls, to doing enablement for reps, for organizing field events, and for co-marketing. And so, yeah, there are a lot of people who are invested in supporting HubSpot's tech ecosystem. We also have a solution architect team and a DevRel team who are also very, very strong and very well staffed. Key part of making sure that the tech product integrations are working really, really well. So it is a large team in terms of the people who are directly doing Aircall and working on the co-sell.
That's you. True. Yep. Got it. Cool. And then Hami on the Aircall side.
I tried to do the math in my head right now, but I'm not as much of a Rain Man.
I saw you looking up.
Listen, okay, just to give you a sheer, a feeling for the scale of how many people are involved in the partnership at Aircall. We start out first with the product team. We have one dedicated product manager just focused on the HubSpot integration to ship continuous innovation. I think just that itself, everybody knows how much a product manager makes. It's already a significant investment. Then you have an entire partnership organization that are focused on solution partners that are very much heavily involved in working these solution partners. You have an entire sales organization starting from the CRO until the actual sales rep that are also included in this partnership motion, because we found that, if, to your point earlier, if this is going to be a partnership-led motion only, it'll die on some sad hill somewhere. What you really need is you need sales reps to talk to the sales reps. You need sales managers to talk to the sales managers. You need the marketing folks to talk to the marketing folks of your partner. And so already, we understood that it requires some sort of mesh network program to make sure that we also connect the right folks from our side to the right folks on HubSpot side. So I'm not sure about the actual number. Maybe I'll do the math afterwards and send it over to you.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. And the cross stakeholder mapping, I think, is key. I think, again, that's another mistake I'll call out for a lot of partner managers is they're putting everything on the main point of contact on the other side. And what happens if that person leaves the company or gets fired? The whole partnership falls down. So you need to multi-thread. You need to become pervasive within that org. You need to know a lot more people. And then you need to connect those people with equivalent people on your side, to your point, Hami. So I think that's a really important call out. All right, last question on this first segment, which is what you guys have done and accomplished and how you did it. And then we're getting into the next segment, which is just general high level. How do you actually build a successful co-sell motion? So the last one about you guys in particular is what is a week in the life of, so to speak, between you guys? Because that's the other thing. People, if you haven't done it, it's hard to imagine what it's like. So in the interactions between you two, as an example, and between HubSpot and Aircall on all things co-sell, literally in a given week when you guys are pretty active with each other and you're doing some stuff, right? What are the things you're actually doing? Are you getting on meetings? What are you talking about in these meetings? Okay, you're doing async work on the partnership. What do these things look like? Help our audience really understand a day in the life of, so to speak, when you guys are actually committing to advancing the co-sell mission as a whole. So I'll start with you, Russell, and I'd love to hear from you, Hami, after.
Hey, you keep picking on me, Hami. You go first. What is
okay, we'll switch it up. So the question is literally not in the early days of like getting this all stood up. Like you guys are at 30,000 feet now. What, when you're committing whatever percentage of your work week towards Russell and HubSpot, literally, what are you doing?
I think it's important for people to understand that Russell and I, obviously, we have weekly standing meetings where we talk about most of the core initiatives that we can actually drive. But then I actually spend a lot of my time speaking to other stakeholders within HubSpot, and also Russell speaks to a lot of stakeholders within Aircall. And so sometimes we actually speak more with other folks inside of the organization than the two of us. And we just keep the high level organizational framework in place to make sure that we have everything, well documented, and we can actually follow through and close the loop. But the reality is, if I just rely on Russell to do the job inside of HubSpot, like he's gonna fight a battle that he can't win, and it's the same on the other side. Like I also need him to send some things over to our team.
Yep. Thanks for sharing that, Russell.
Yeah, I think it's combination of strategy and action. And so for any partnership, I would say that the most fundamental important thing to be able to execute quickly is a high degree of trust. And you can operate partnerships, you can absolutely operate with zero trust, but just everything moves a lot slower. And so I think for Hami and I, one of the key things, as you mentioned, is working across multiple stakeholders and making sure that people on Aircall side are hearing the same thing from me as they are hearing from Hami about what is working well for HubSpot and what is not working well, and vice versa. So we have a HubSpot Partner Advisory Council, of which Hami is a part of, being able to connect with other senior leaders from tech partners and provide that feedback directly to my leadership. So the challenges or opportunities that I'm escalating to my leaders are also being fed to them from Hami as well. And then on the action side, we spend a lot of time, or at least I spend a lot of time following up with reps on conversations that have mentions of Aircall. And so we have built out quite an extensive program to use Gong transcripts to take mentions. And actually, I think there's a huge opportunity to use AI to accelerate that and make that more meaningful in terms of capturing the pain point that the customer is actually expressing, as opposed to what is the Aircall standard value prop, and also to shorten the time to value, so that the customer expresses this pain point to a HubSpot rep who doesn't really know that much about Aircall. They're not paid to know about Aircall, and I can loop in immediately afterwards with content which is partially scored and then created from using AI to feed really targeted messages to say, do you want me to help you with this problem that you just heard on the call? And so shortening that time to value is something that I'm very, very focused on.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate the perspectives on both sides. And as a follow-up, I want to go even deeper. I think that's like a really good high level understanding of like how you guys potentially operate together. But as it pertains to co-sell, I want to go even deeper to understand like literally what it looks like, because that's really what people are going to take away most from this. So let's focus on your Fit for Me case study, so to speak, which was a published case study between Aircall and HubSpot. I think that's a fantastic kind of example for us to walk through of like, what are the individual steps? So I'd love for you guys to walk us through that Fit for Me kind of case study, perhaps beginning to end. Like, what was the initial signal that kind of triggered working together on this particular kind of customer account? What were the steps, and then ultimately what was the outcome of that? I think walking through this in as much detail as possible will really give a good blueprint for our audience to understand what this could look like for them and their company.
Cool. Do you want me to start?
This for me is a very interesting one. So they are a very happy customer today, and there was a lot of hard work that went into that. Were some context ahead of time, I would say even more so than the direct, like where did the lead come from, is that HubSpot and Aircall's product team were working together to launch we have a new CTI, which pops up from directly in HubSpot and that in-product surface is extremely valuable to partners. It creates a near native experience. Hami earlier talked about the platform being committed to providing extensibility and trying to match the HubSpot native and the partner experience as closely as possible. Building stuff together is hard. Like building stuff by your own team is hard. And
Yep.
aligning the timing of when things are getting built and when things are communicated to the market is also challenging, so that you're ready to communicate and excited and getting everybody pumped up. And then also not having a lag time from when stuff. And so we were working on this CTI work, and one of the HubSpot solution architects, who is amazing, sales engineers, who is amazing, spoke with HubSpot, spoke with Aircall, and spoke with me, and found a workaround to give a demo of what that CTI looked like. It was a joint demo with HubSpot and Aircall, which is a really valuable thing and very valuable for the customer. And the customer left that meeting with the impression that that was going to be coming soon. The product team roadmap did not exactly match the deal signing. And so the customer signed their deal, and they were like, that wasn't what we signed up for. Like, where's the thing that you showed me? And I think joint demos, one of the things that Aircall does a fantastic job is being able to demo HubSpot as well as Aircall. And so there was an opportunity where we could have pointed fingers and be like, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. And I think that's where the trust in the relationship was very, very helpful. And we were able to accelerate the product work that needed to happen, because ultimately, and I think this was the winning message, which is like, the market is telling us very clearly that they want this. Like, they are paying us money to have this thing. We showed them, they gave us the money. Like, that is the best product market fit that you can have. And so we were able to accelerate that time frame thanks to Aircall's product and engineering team. And that was a lot of work. That was not easy. It was a change of priorities. It went all the way up to the CEO, the CPO. And so I really, really appreciate Scott and Tom's support for that. And 4 months later, Fit for Me is now super happy. They have 60 agents working in HubSpot that can call directly from HubSpot with numbers across 12 countries. Really, really complicated work. And all of their metrics on their business are very, very good, both from the calling side and also from the ticket management side from HubSpot. So I think that's where you really need to have high levels of trust. You really need to have high commitment, and be able to ultimately like escalate. And like, if you have problems, to say, like, we need to have a heart to heart about this so that we can solve for the customer. And I think Aircall has done a fantastic job out of that. And so great. It would be great to hear Hami's perspective on it as well.
I think you already gave a very comprehensive answer to the deal. What I would just add to that, and we can also dive into the specifics in more detail, is a lot of these co-sales, I think, fail because of process and people. Those are the two P's that you really 100%. Need to nail. And in scenarios like this, it's like very important, like, how do you have the right process in place to escalate the right feedback, bring in the right people, and then also manage the people part? Because to Russell's point, it's not like, there were not attempts to point fingers, but very clearly it's like, okay, is this really the right strategy? And should we go through with this? Or are we trying to solve for the customer, which ultimately is exactly what you need to do in this type of co-selling partnership?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is a great case study. And I think people listening might be like, wow, like, this is a lot of work. And it's true. It's not for the faint of heart. Like, this was like co-solutioning, post co-selling, so to speak, which is another signal of a really strong partnership. But you mentioned one thing, Russell, that I think is another key element of co-selling, which is, co-demoing like live on a call. Like, that's a scary thing, right? Like, either seller rep on either side is like, man, like, is this deal in jeopardy now? Because like, are they going to be aligned? Can they really speak to our product the same way that we can speak to it? So the trust key element is everything. So this brings us to our final segment, which is just kind of for people who are wanting to either build a co-sell motion, or if they've already got it going, advance it. So we're going to ask you some point blank questions that you can help coach our audience on. So the first question is like, where do you even get started to get to that point where like that trust is there? Like, I'll ask a point blank question. what are the signals? Say I drop you in as advisors, right? I say, hey guys, I need you to come with me. I'm going to have you look into some of these partner programs at various B2B SaaS companies. And all I need you to tell me is, do you think they're ready to start testing co-sell? Right? Full stop. That's all I care. Like, Russell, Hami, tell me this company here, take a look, ask them all the questions you want. Do you think they're ready to start co-selling? Yes or no? What are some of the questions you would ask? What are some of the things you would look to see if they're in place? Because this is a question I get all the time. It's like, hey, we have a referral motion, sure. We think we're ready for co-sell, but we're not really sure. So what are the things that you guys think is really important to have in place? And perhaps what are the questions you might ask in this theoretical example to understand if it is the right time, if the right things are in place? Hami, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if I'm going to be perfectly able to answer your question, but for me, what is really important is a lot of these partnerships motions just fail because in partnerships, you get really quickly hyped up about new co-selling motion, and you hype up your own go-to-market team like this is going to be the next thing. And then what I've seen in some organizations is that they actually lost completely trust of what it means to spin up a really successful motion. And so there's been a lot of overselling. There's been a lot of like, we get you into deals, we get you into some of the discussions, and then either you don't close the loop on it, you don't evaluate it straight. And as a partnership person, you're in this like conundrum of saying like, you need to find new opportunities. And then at the same time, you need to also be very clear, like what's a good opportunity for your company. So I think the first one is you need to find some conviction bets and start small with them, and then just prove internally that they actually work, and then scale from there. Because this trust basis is one of the biggest challenges that a lot of partnership folks face in various companies.
Yeah, it definitely takes a long time to get that trust built in, which takes wins. Like, you need wins under your belt, right? Like, co-sell is a relatively advanced motion. You just can't go from zero to co-sell overnight. So there's enough time, enough cycles have to pass through. So I'd love to get your reaction to this question, Russell. Like, if you're starting from early stage and you're trying to like grow a partnership and you think you might be at a point where maybe co-selling is a viable kind of motion, so to speak, to start investing in, like, what are the things that you'd be looking to have in place? Right, where you're like, you know what, I think there's a good chance that co-selling for this partnership is a viable path.
So my short answer is probably you're not ready. Like, if you were thinking about that question and not 100% convinced, you're not. It is far harder than you could possibly imagine that it is.
Yep.
Which is and so I would even take a step back on that and think about not so much evaluating for co-sell, although I can understand why people focus on that, is to think about the partnerships and how you prioritize partnerships. And so when I joined HubSpot, I previously worked for a very fast growing startup in France that had accelerated and then decelerated in very quick order. And what we saw was our customers who had a CRM integration worked really, really well. And so we signed a $2 million deal with Uber Eats. I was managing the enterprise sales team, and that went to $4 million in a year or two. That was really cool. And then we also signed Google, we signed OpenTable, we signed Pepsi, and all of those deals churned, honestly, if we were realistic, almost from day one. Like, they never got to the growth trajectory that you would need for them to be successful. And so when I joined HubSpot, one of the things which was really, really interesting is we can see an integration and how active it is with HubSpot for our customers. And so I can track cohorts of customers that are joining every month for the last 12 months and see how long they have used the integration. And if those numbers are mostly red and the people are not using the integration, you need to fix the problem. It's not like there are leaky buckets and there's just like a hose, like the customers come in here and they drop out down there. And the people who are most excited about co-sell that I talk to have the biggest leaky buckets. And they're just like, I need co-sell because the customers leave so fast. You're like, no, you need to fix the product. Like, if people are not, there's no way to outsell a product problem. And so for me, I think that is really understanding the usage of the product, understanding like what are the customer use cases that are driving value today, understanding which of the partnerships that you have that are working. And if you are working on more than 3 partnerships and you are not somebody of the size of HubSpot and Aircall, knock it off. Like, go focus on 3. Even you do better if you even focused on 2. Focus on the one that's working the most. Don't try to stand 2 or 3 up at the same time. And then try to do it without the partner. Honestly, like, the coordination aspect of co-selling is the biggest headache. Even try to get alignment even within your own organization to say, can we get our sales reps so that they can have a higher close rate on HubSpot deals? And can we get our marketing team to be able to tell a joint value prop story? You don't need HubSpot to do that. You can do that. Like, your marketing team is right there and your sales team is right there. Go talk to them. Like, that's like the hard truth that a lot of partnership people don't want to do. Or they're like, hey, that avenue is closed, so I need to go to my partner to figure out co-sell. Like, that is not like where, that ends in tears.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Russell. I think that's one of the more practical segments of the whole interview so far. Is just, I think that really just strips it all down. Like, that is really what it takes. I think one challenge that a lot of folks have is you said, okay, like, you can't be trying to do anything like this with like a big book of business partner wise, right? A big portfolio of partners. So you got to have like 2 or 3. I think the challenge a lot of people run into is like, okay, I've got this intense quota on my head. Maybe it's like I'm comped on like source revenue, influence revenue quarterly. And I feel like if I trim away some of my other partners and I only focus on like 2 or 3, it's like, am I going to be able to like get enough meat off of that bone, so to speak? And so a lot of ICs understandably have this fear of playing the long game, where it's like, okay, sure, maybe I can have this super successful partnership with it, like the likes of an Aircall, by only working with like 2 or 3 partners. But how long is that going to take? Is that going to take me 6 to 10 months to like really get this thing humming to a point where I'm crushing? And am I going to survive that time? Am I going to miss quota for a few months until I hit it? So maybe I'd love to get both of you to react. Like, how would you advise, let's just say, a senior tech partner manager as an example, who understands what you just said, Russell? I need to focus on fewer, more strategic partners and go deeper, but that might be at the cost of trading off some of my performance in the short term in pursuit of much bigger games in the long term. And I just got to hope I can like maintain my job security in the meantime, because that's a real thing, right? Like, that's a real thing. So how would you kind of coach ICs and senior ICs who need to trim their portfolio, go deeper with fewer partners, while still maintaining some level of job security, so their company has enough patience with that new approach? Would love to get a response from you, Hami, and then finish with you, Russell.
I think the first point is starting with your podcast. Just having a very clear understanding of like, what's the realistic expectation? Like, it's nice when the business puts a lot of pressure on you. And of course, you will still need to maintain a level of BD outreach and just try to make sure that you have some source revenue. But the reality is, like, these things are freaking hard. And if you want to stand up a partnership like this one, it's several years in the making. So you need to balance the 3. Like, you need to make sure that you put the right emphasis on the right activities to build the fundament in order to grow, and then have some like quick wins down the line, and make sure that you keep your job. But expectation management is super important, and also giving a lot of how would I say that? Including your managers and your directs as part of this motion is probably also helpful, because if you just run in silo, the reality is you will get a lot of questions where you will not have a lot of answers to it. And so make them part of the solution is probably the best answer I can give you.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. Expectation setting is critical. And look, like, yeah, your company wants you to hit quota and deliver right now. But if you give them a bona fide plan that looks investable, is high signal, and is projected to deliver like 10x outcomes relative to what you're producing right now, any good leadership company should be able to buy into that to give you the grace and patience that you need if they're a good company. If they don't, well, then you got bigger problems. So we appreciate that perspective. Russell, help us understand what an IC or a senior IC should be thinking about when they need to go deeper with fewer partners, still deliver enough to keep their job, so they can play the long game.
I mean, I absolutely agree with everything that Hami said. I would strongly encourage you to lean into your product team. and
Yeah.
understand how they are measuring product usage today. Because if you have a successful integration, it will improve your product metrics. If you're focusing on net new deals, those net new deals will most certainly close faster.
Yep.
If you're focusing on retention,
Yep.
integration usage definitely has, from HubSpot's perspective, a 10% increase on customer retention, which is a very, very beneficial thing. And then if you're focusing on usage, your integration should ultimately help you move usage numbers. Uh,
Yeah.
Most product teams are not sophisticated enough to measure the impact of integrations. And so you just need to keep coming back to them. And then also go reach out to the finance team. I think one of the traps that the partnership programs that I see fall into is that they report into the sales or CRO,
Yeah.
and that is their whole world. And if you try to tell the CRO or the head of sales, we're not focusing on net new logos, good luck, because that's what the head of sales is measured on. That is the only thing that they care about, but that is not
Yep.
what an entire business cares about. And so, yes, net new logo are very, very important for the growth of a business. But if you have a really high churn problem, you can't outsell that problem. Like, you need to
No.
fix the underlying health of the business, and integrations are a very, very strong part of that. And clearly you can see it with AI, with Claude pulling away from open with ChatGPT. Is look at what they've done with MCP. It is extremely easy to plug in tools into Claude and then be able to query the data directly from Claude. With
Yep.
ChatGPT, it's just like the LLM stands on its own and searches internet and you can add context to it, but it's not that easy to bring in integrations.
Yep.
And so I strongly believe product partnerships is really, really valuable, and you need to not get just strong armed by the head of sales to be like, the whole thing is sourcing.
Yeah, that was fantastic. One of my favorite lines there was like the sophistication to track the impact of integrations. That's like something that's near and dear to my heart. And when I was at Gorgeous for 3 years on building their tech partner program from scratch, I was doing fine, but like what helped me take a quantum leap was I hammered my RevOps team. I was like, I need to understand what is the correlation between integration adoption to net revenue retention, right? Every board member, every C-suite, they can get their head around, and anything that touches net revenue retention, that's something they'll stop and listen to. And I remember it took 4 months. He finally got back to me with the data, and it was literally, I teach this all the time in my programs. It was one of the biggest moments of my entire career because the data was overwhelming. So we had, at the time, Gorgeous had 10,000 customers, mostly SMB mid-market, and we put them into 4 buckets: 0 to 2 integrations installed, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and then or 6 to 7 and greater than 8. And if we could get our customers to install 7 integrations or more, we were having like 115% NRR or above. If we got them to 8 plus, it was 146%, which is like enterprise snowflake level. And so I was then able to go to everyone. I talked to our CEO. I was like, look, we have every incentive in the world to drive adoption, and we could get smart about which integrations, like Aircall, had the biggest positive impact on NRR, and we could rally this whole strategy around on the product side first, and then on the commercial side. So I love what you said there, Russell. Every
Chris,
single partnership
one
person,
thing,
there's a
one,
single.
one
Yeah,
thing
go ahead.
I just want to caveat on that, because I would encourage partnership people not to be lazy with the stats. And I'm not saying that you are,
For sure.
but what it is easy to count the number of integrations, and that is not the important factor. The important factor is
Usages,
the usage.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
100%.
the more granular that you can get on what the integration is actually doing, the better you will be able to make that correlation and have that correlation stand up to shocks. And so in the one of the things that we got hammered on was after the post-COVID dip in people buying software, when we were talking about 7 to 8 to 10 integrations, we weren't talking about active integrations. And so the
Yep.
numbers weren't that pretty. Like the finance team was looking at us like, hey, you said you were giving us 10%, and like this was the shit hit the fan moment, and like we didn't get the 10%. And so I
Yep.
just strongly encourage you not to, like, I'm not saying this to you, Chris, but like to partner people listening, be very focused on usage. That
100%.
that
100%.
is the
I
most
agree that
important.
I appreciate that clarifying, and for sure for us that was the case. So it's like I always start with like how many mutual customers do we have with this partner? That's like super top of funnel. How many mutual like integration installs do we have? But that's still, to your point, it's not enough. What's the user activity like as evidenced by like API activity in the last 30 days? And then to go a step further than even what you said, Russell, like is there some positive impact on our billing mechanism? Like for Gorgeous, it was like ticket volume, right? Like how many support tickets were coming through. If an integration is positively benefiting that, right, and it's boosting like net revenue retention and NPS, then it's like we all should be pressing that button all day long, right, to try to like amplify that effect. So that's great. But look, we're 2 minutes from time, so I'm just going to wrap up with one rapid fire question for each of you, and then we'll close out. So what, in each of your opinion, is the best co-sell metric to monitor? So you got this co-sell motion going between HubSpot and Aircall. There's a variety of data points and metrics that matter. But if you could only pick one, right, that you think is just the most telling, so to speak, metric as a handle, what would you choose? So we'll start with you, Russell, and then we'll wrap up with you, Hami.
I'm always biased towards leading indicators, not lagging indicators.
Sure.
And so I think deal revenue is probably a lagging indicator. For me, I think mentions on calls is probably one of the most positive leading indicators.
Super strong. Love that. Hami?
I think I will take my ISV hat on, and as an ISV partner selling with platform, it will remain net new sales. It's one that I actually hate, and it's one that I push back as much as I can internally. But the reality is, if you want to get people excited as an ISV partner inside of your organization around a partnership, that's probably the metric that they care most about, because it just means that you get access to more customers and it's actually driving net new logos. And that's something that in every board meeting is going to be a very fruitful conversation. So that's the one, unfortunately, I have to go with. Hopefully we'll be able to change that in the future, but for now, that's what it is.
No, I think both of you gave us a strong leading and lagging indicator as an example. But look, we're at time. This was a masterclass. I can't wait to get this live. So Russell and Hami, thank you so much for joining us on the Mastermind Podcast.
Chris, thank you very much for having us on number 40.
40.
All right. Until next time, if you like this episode, be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.